Here we are. We're live. Woo! All right. Let's do this thing. All right. We got the live going.
If these guys don't come on, I'm just going to watch the MicroStrategy earnings call again.
Here we go.
It's a good backup plan.
That is. You might as well.
It was a good call. It was a good call.
You can watch that thing like 20 times. All right. Here we are. Woo! Happy Veterans Day, 11/11. Welcome back, everybody. MicroStrategy True North, episode 4, impromptu, Bitcoin all-time high, MicroStrategy all-time high. We've got the squad, and we are ready to go. We're ready to chat. We're having a little fun. We'll talk through some of the things we're thinking about because we're going higher. We're going much higher, and we want to mentally prepare, get everybody ready for that. So, we've got a little bit of an agenda. I'm going to kick it over to Tim. Tell everybody this is not financial advice. We'll go from there.
Good evening, everyone. This is not financial advice, but as usual, it'll probably be amazing. Back to you, Jeff.
Perfect. All right. Amazing content, not financial advice. And it's from Tim, so it makes it way more official. So thank you. All right. In terms of topics, obviously Bitcoin hitting all-time high. We're in price discovery. This is... Where did that come from? All right. I love it. All right,
back to you, Jeff.
Yeah, we're in price discovery. We are full on price discovery in Bitcoin and MicroStrategy. What is it worth? Nobody knows. Everybody's trying to figure it out. We've got somebody is on the buy button. It's bigger than retail. We'll walk through that a little bit. Talk through this. It could go significantly higher. Walk through some just basic math on mental preparations, where we see this potentially going. Right, we still haven't even hit any of the catalysts. All the catalysts are in front of us. Right, every catalyst almost is in front of us. We're looking forward. There was an ATM announcement. MicroStrategy purchased more Bitcoin today, or than the last 10 days, than Mara. Than the next closest publicly traded company that holds Bitcoin, than their entire hodl, which is crazy. Also, they tapped into the $21 billion ATM a little bit early. So we've talked about that, and we'll see where it goes. Welcome everybody. Thank you. Bitcoin. Let's talk Bitcoin. We got somebody on the buy button. Who do we think it is?
I thought it was Sailor, but it's got to be bigger than him, or, I mean, who's bigger than Sailor?
Nation state.
Imagine it was Sailor.
Idea.
Yeah, imagine it is Sailor, and he's just going hard on this equity offering. And there's $14 billion of volume today, and $7 billion of it's him selling, and the price just ran anyways. And he just shows up and keeps buying Bitcoin. Like, how crazy would that be? I don't think that's what's happening, but I think it's probably one of these Middle East sovereign wealth funds, BRICS nations, trying to front run, right? They essentially have 2.5 months or 2 months to front run before the US is going to wake up and start doing anything about it. So I think just the timing, because the bid was over the weekend, it was in the middle of the night. I mean, it was all the times you don't normally see volume. And then when you're watching the order book, you're getting market orders for like 50 Bitcoin, 100 Bitcoin, like you don't buy Bitcoin like that if you care about the price, right? If you care about the price, you use limit orders, you try to minimize your impact, you try to hold it down. You don't market order for 50 Bitcoin. Like that doesn't happen. So I think this is nation states showing up in a big way, and they're the ones that they just want the Bitcoin, right? They don't care what the fiat value of what they're purchasing is. If all these BRICS nations mean what they say, where they want to settle global trade amongst themselves in Bitcoin, they just want to make sure that they have more of it than the US. Think of it like a global wealth redistribution amongst nations, right? Yeah. You're in this race to protect the economic value that your country has in the world. And right now, you know that the biggest economic power isn't going to be buying, right? If anything, just watch the US do something absurd like sell the rest of the Bitcoin, right? Something crazy. And then we got to go get it all back again later, right? Watch them do something dumb like that. But you know that the economic superpower is sitting on the sidelines for at least 2 months. So you've got time to accumulate amongst yourselves And then if you're the US, game that out, right? You can't not own Bitcoin then. If all the nations that are not US friendly are buying Bitcoin and settling trade in Bitcoin,
selling oil, selling oil in Bitcoin,
selling oil, right? Selling other commodities,
other things,
more Bitcoin, right? Like if they're all going to transact with this, if you're the US and you want to protect your economic standing globally, even if you don't want to do anything with the Bitcoin, you have to buy a shit ton of it.
Smash buy.
Because you've got to hold a proportionate amount to where you sit in the world financial stage today. And you don't want to be the country that's last. So if that's what's happening, like today is just warming things up, right? Because the big economic powers aren't even here yet. And the US doesn't care what US dollar value they have to spend to get Bitcoin because they create it. If you're a country that creates a currency right now that you can use to buy Bitcoin, you're in a huge power position to the ones that gave up their own fiat currencies and are using somebody else's, right? Like, what is going on in Tim's world over there?
Did you see?
Wondering, like, what is that?
Sorry to see. He's like, I'm shopping for.
Tim's having a good day. I think he was drinking and now he's wandering the streets. I'm not sure what's happening here. But
yeah, you don't
anyways,
have to
that's
shop at
my
Walmart
thesis.
anymore, Tim.
That's right.
It's your
Go to Fifth
local
Avenue or something, Tim. You can afford it now.
it's your local CVS.
Did you see Bukele's tweet?
I'm going to buy Guatemala, or no? I told you so.
Yeah.
I told you so.
Well,
There
was
was
also
also
about a nation state, though. Honestly, this is not Dell. This is not Microsoft. This is
Facebook.
not Meta. It's not Nvidia. I don't think so. They to Ben's point, they'll be buying in a more prescriptive manner. This person is just buying whatever the fuck they can, whatever the fuck they can do it, and they started on Saturday night. So.
Yep. Yeah, MicroStrategy has to maximize Bitcoin per share, right?
Yeah.
So they're actually incentivized to do really good trade execution, right? So they'll buy in limit orders, but they'll do OTC purchases. They'll do all kinds of things to make sure they get as many Bitcoin for the dollars they're spending. Whoever's buying right now is not working that approach at all. They don't care. I mean, just look at the price action. They don't care. But now I'm starting to wonder, like, who the heck is jumping in front of this and selling this stuff to them? Like, if you even had a tinge of feeling that that's what's happening, you would pull all your Bitcoin off there and just let this thing fly. I'm not selling it now. Not if I think I've got this type of buyer in the way. Like, good luck estimating that pricing.
Is it possible that if we're thinking nation states and we got a couple of Muppets in the White House right now, is it possible that they're selling, trying to offset what this group is buying?
Who cares? It's like
I knew that's what you're going to say. I knew that's what you're going to say.
Who cares?
America, the country, owns less, Bitcoin than a company I own, and I'm just a fucking idiot on the internet. Like it's almost like irrelevant. BlackRock will buy it, Nayib Bukele will buy it, Metaplanet will buy it, Semler Scientific will buy it, MicroStrategy will buy it. That's my take there. Who cares?
Well, it's not going to stop the price action. But to Ben's point, why? Like the only people selling at this point are trying to push the price down or maybe take profits, maybe. But at the same time, if you look at what's going on, this is not the time to take profits. This is the time to sit in your hands, wait for it to run a little bit, and then take profits.
It makes me wonder. I mean, how many sell orders are going to be between 100,000 and 400,000? I feel like there's a high likelihood that you could just skip some massive numbers, right? Like you could.
Well,
like
we're going
to see the market cap just rocket, right? Like it could go up 50 grand in a day. It'd be like, oh, holy shit. Well, there's no fucking sell orders between 125,000, 150,000. It's like, whoa, it just goes to the next sell order.
Well, and everyone's saying, right, they keep tracking, there's 2 million on exchanges, but all of those aren't available, right? Like I know tons of people that have Bitcoin that are just holding them on the exchange because, one, they didn't have really any other options at the time for how to buy it. There were no ETFs or anything, so they're just sitting on this Bitcoin on places like Coinbase, but those aren't really available. So how much is available? And if if this legislature comes through and the plan is to buy 1 million, and RFK is going to be in this administration. His plan was to buy 4, but say that they're going to buy 1 million, right? Let's be really bearish about this and say that the US only wants to be 1/21 million of the future of digital capital in the world globally. And they're buying 200,000 of these while every other country is rushing to protect their economic power on the global stage at the same time. Like, what do you think happens when nobody wants to sell anymore? Like, it just leapfrogs. I mean, I think that seeing $10,000 candles is going to be boring pretty soon here.
Yeah.
Because
Well, it's
when
all
those
base
order
effect.
books
It's all
get
base
empty,
effect, right? Yeah. I mean,
exactly. When those order books get empty, right? Like, you've gotta give someone an incentive to sell to you, and it'll be retail first, right? I mean, I'm not going to pretend that I'd be clinging to this up to $5 million a coin, right? Like, there's a certain point where, you know, I'll take some and go, you know, have a really good time with it. Not all of it. You know, some of it's a trophy that you're just going to hold and be like, you just can't have this just because I don't want you to. You know, there's that part of it. But when I can sell 2 of them and just fall out of control for a while, like, I'm going to do that. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. But we're nowhere near there yet.
And imagine the price of MicroStrategy when you see a $10,000 gap up or a $5,000 gap up, like all of a sudden, boom, your models are broken. Like all of your models are broken. mNAV is broken. They're right. Like nobody knows what the company is worth, and so you have to compare it to something. And the only comparable peers are like top 5, top 10 publicly traded equities that have a similar technological moat and financial power, right? So it's like, and those companies are valued at $3 trillion today, which is $17,000 price per share for MicroStrategy. If you want to put that as like your target, like that's where we're going, right? So while it was euphoric today, I think everybody should mentally prepare for it to get much, much, much higher and much greater. Because all of the catalysts, all of the positive catalysts are in front of us, right? Except for the election. The election set the stage. All of the catalysts are in front of us. Go ahead, Ryan.
Did the stock move at all today? I didn't look. I don't care.
They did an ATM, Ryan. It's cratering beneath the weight of the sell pressure from the
Can we talk about the ATM?
Tomorrow might be your day, though, Ryan. Tomorrow might be your day.
We got to talk about the ATM. We got to talk about the ATM. So $2 billion ATM. They had $890 million left in the ATM from August. So we think that they used the rest of that $890 million from August, and then an additional $1.1 billion from the $21 million shelf offering that they just filed 10 days ago. So they've sold $2 billion of shares on the market in the last 10 days, and the price has done this. What? I mean, that's crazy. So in my mind, thank you to Saylor for actually filing the shelf registration, because I mean, it's going to be necessary liquidity, or else, I mean, can you imagine if they didn't sell $2 billion of shares on the market? Oh my God. Like, it would run away. It would just run away from people. It's crazy.
Well, I was talking earlier, and I was thinking, you know, what happens if he used the entire 21 billion by the end of November? And then he went and said, great, we got it all done early, right? Because we had such liquidity in the stock that it was easy to offload $1 billion a day or $2 billion a day. Like, look at the volume today. It would have been so easy to offload. They probably were, right? I mean, I can't imagine they'd pass up that type of volume. But say they were done by the end of November. And then Saylor said, you know, we'll get another one out of here, but we're just going to focus on converts for the next 6 months, and we're not going to put sell pressure in the market. Like, imagine what happens if he just totally takes out. Look what happened right before earnings when they took the sell pressure out of the market, right, during the quiet period. It just ran like crazy, straight 45-degree angle up and to the right. Now do that now when Bitcoin's ripping alongside of it. I mean, that could get really, no, he's not going to do that, right? He'll open another one the next day. He'll start selling more. Like, I get that, right? That's what I'd expect him to do. In long term, it's what I want him to do. But he's financially engineering all this balance sheet space for new converts. He's going to have no issue getting $5 billion of converts out. Right now, when I looked, he's got space. If all he did was try to stick at 25% leverage on the fair market value of the Bitcoin they hold, he could go issue a $2 billion convert right now, right? And then if he goes and buys more with this ATM and the Bitcoin price keeps going up, like those two things work together to create that space for him to go get that additional convertible debt. And by the way, here's the reality, as Ryan would say.
Here's the reality.
Every single convertible bond is currently in the countdown period for being able to convert early. Every single one of them. Like, if you can't put together how crazy that is, like a couple of these got issued like 2 months ago, and they're already in the countdown to be able to early convert. I don't know that they will. It'll all depend on what price does here coming into the end of the year. But the fact that they all can is wild. I mean, that is so crazy that that's happened already. That getting $5 billion out the door he'll do that in January.
Right.
Like he'll be able to get it out so quickly.
So
you can hardly comprehend it. He might be done with 21 by summer, right? He might be totally done with it. And then we'll be on 210, right? Getting real wild.
That's hyper Bitcoinization for sure. That starts to get crazy quick. But I mean, the $5 billion, right? If those pieces of convertible debt get closed out, everybody that bought it is also going to want to sign up to do it again, right? Run it back. I want the product again. So, all right, there's $5 billion check. Like, yeah, you're right, Ben. I mean, your 2025 quota of $5 billion, you could do it in a month. Additionally, I did go back and listen to the earnings call, and it sounded like they saved $14 million of salaries next year in 2025. So, I mean, that gives them more capacity for additional bonds, let alone zero coupon, right? I mean, holy moly, this could get crazy quickly.
He was feeling Bitcoin poor and had to lay some people off.
What's that?
He was feeling Bitcoin poor and had to lay some people off.
Yeah.
Or they all had stock options and they said, do you want early retirement? And half the company was like, yeah, sure, we're out.
Yeah, that's probably right. That's probably realistic.
They got a soft landing.
And look, we take no pleasure in people being fired or removed. I cry myself to sleep over this stuff. I wish we took those 200-300 people, put them on the Bitcoin treasury team, and just transferred them. That would have been my. Nobody calls me, but that would have been my suggestion. Just transfer them. We take no pleasure in this stuff. That has to be said.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, you don't ever root for layoffs, right? I mean, we'd speculated that it might be coming a while ago just because you're not seeing the speed of advancement in the BI product to warrant having almost half your company be in R&D, right? So if they don't have more products coming down the pipeline, they were way overweight on that side of the house. And the treasury team's like 6 people, right? I mean, it's like a few lawyers and an intern, and like it's a small team that created $58 billion of value for shareholders in the last 4 years, which is just crazy.
Yeah, you don't need a very big team to move capital. Or right, it just 10 people. That's probably. I mean, shoot, I move capital in my job, and most of my teams are 3 or 4 people, and I'm moving $200 million deals, and it's not unheard of. It's not crazy. I mean, there are bigger deals that get done with less people. It just matters getting the right relationships and the right people in the door. So, man,
it's a reminder to stack sats though too. Like, I survived my 5th layoff in 8 years earlier this year. Yeah. So, and like AI is coming for everybody. And so you just got to get an asset that everything else is going down in value against forever and secure your future. You know what I mean?
AI really is coming for people. I've seen it happen with what I do day to day. Teams of 12 have turned into teams of 3.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. It's everybody's gonna have to rethink the workforce, right? Where does that work go? And I think that is Bitcoin is hope. I think about this a lot, being a deflationary asset, and because it doesn't decay, everybody's energy is stored longer, and it should improve humanity. It's a crazy concept to think about, because the money we know today isn't like, it's broken, it decays. We know that it goes different places and it's destroyed, war, etc. And if you think about a Bitcoin denominated future where your energy is stored and saved without decay for a longer period of time, everybody should be better off over the long run. And I was starting to conceptualize this in my job and my role in as like selling reinsurance. Like right now, the reinsurance market is only able to protect up to events up to the 1 in 250 year return period. So that's kind of how we think about it. But in a situation where, you know, a future Bitcoin denominated world, we may be able to see the reinsurance market may have enough capital to protect against the 1 in 500 year event, or the 1 in 1,000 year event, and the 1 in 10,000 year event. And then all of a sudden, right, like maybe it doesn't make sense to live in Florida right now because like insurance is impossible to buy. But, you know, maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, if the money's fixed, it like maybe that changes, that the equation changes a little bit. So it's an interesting concept.
Yeah, I think the natural state of deflation might have been Jeff Booth that said it should be like 5%. Like everything should be getting 5% cheaper.
Yeah.
If the governments weren't inflating the money. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, he's pretty optimistic because he said, you know, if Bitcoin wins, and he thinks it does, that AI is going to make that deflation, which is making everyone richer, you know, 5% richer, it's just going to be exponential. So everyone is just going to be getting exponentially richer when AI is basically working in tandem with Bitcoin to make everything more affordable for everyone, you know, forever. So there is good news. There's basically Bitcoin is hope in that sense.
Yeah. If you've ever traveled like Europe or any of these like older countries as well, if you think about, look at the buildings that were made with a gold standard and compare them to buildings that were made in the 80s or 90s. And they're just like trash, right? Like concrete pieces of trash compared to these like really ornate buildings with cool sculptures and carvings and architectural features and, you know, all this other stuff, like stuff that just wouldn't be made today because people are doing too much shit and the money's broken. And it's it's kind of a crazy concept. And the benefit of like AI and technological innovation, that should go to humanity, right? Like that benefit, like if all this technological advancements are happening, if food's getting easier to produce and harvest and yields, and, you know, how is it more expensive?
How's it more expensive? Great question. Have you seen the wealth inequality chart?
Yeah.
Have you seen NATO? May I introduce you to NATO? They don't stop. They've never found a reason not to go to war in their entire existence. Let's be honest. Also, the thing I want to say, and then I'm going to pass it right here, what Jeff is talking about, like that like 17th, 18th, 19th century real estate buildings and how beautiful they are and like how long lasting they are. That's like Dr. Safety and Amos 101. Like you read the Bitcoin standard, you read the fiat standard, you watch him on a couple podcasts, and those are the things that will start to turn up. So I love that point. I just wanted to shout out Safety in there.
Yeah, man. A bright future for sure. An absolutely bright future. Exciting stuff. And I think to tie it all back to Bitcoin and MicroStrategy is everybody that is spent the time trying to understand Bitcoin has this confidence that it can carry the wealth of humanity, right? And if that's the case, what is the wealth of humanity worth? And it's a lot more than $1 trillion. It's a lot more than 1/3 the market cap of Apple, right? And that technological innovation will start to be priced appropriately as people start to figure it out. But it's still going to take some time. But it could happen very quick, especially if we got, you know, Trump and Saylor and other nation states on the bid, chasing the thing up, and MicroStrategy is just following it. Tim, you have been everywhere in this call. You've been in a CVS, by a brownstone, and now you look like you're on a highway. What?
It's just the West Side
West
Highway.
Side.
It's New Jersey behind me. It's Ryan's homeland. I'm trying to
I love
say
that.
hello.
What's the pulse, Tim? I need to know the pulse of New York. Were people running around with their head cut off, like yelling "buy Bitcoin" like all day today, or like was it just quiet?
I got a few text messages with one text message in particular congratulating me on the MSTR all-time high, which I thought was pretty cool. And yeah, a few other unsolicited text messages about like, oh, yeah, I saw your YouTube channel. You must be having a great day. We should go to dinner sometime. It's like very funny.
Yeah.
But no, all good here right now. Hustling and bustling a little bit in the West Village, but overall, it's it's Monday night. People are trying to go to bed. It's about just before 11. So yeah, no, great day.
Interesting.
But do you feel like when you walk down the street, people can sense that you have a different swagger because you own MicroStrategy shares? Like, is that exuding to the streets of New York? Because that's what we need to really turn the tides here.
Ben, absolutely.
There it is. That's all I needed to know. We're going higher, guys. We're going higher.
Yeah, it was funny. I walked into my office today, and only one person in my company at the time knows that I'm interested in Bitcoin, and he comes up to me and he says, "Hey, Doge is up 20%." And I'm just like, "Oh man, we're going so much higher."
You're basically that party guy meme at your office where you're sitting in the corner and you're like, nobody knows I can retire on MicroStrategy right now. Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. It's crazy. Yeah, totally crazy. What about you, Adrian? What are you hearing? What's your thoughts? I know you've got the pulse of some other people in the Twitter sphere as well. The miners, AI people. Are you getting text messages? Are people reaching out to you?
So I am getting a lot of text messages, actually. I told a few guys about MicroStrategy, I want to say about 6 months ago. And they were heavy in NVIDIA. They were heavy in altcoins. No Bitcoin, no MicroStrategy, no miners, no Semler, no nothing. And, to be a dick, because I have all these Python scripts that just do all the charts for me, I took screenshots and I set them with the performance of MicroStrategy versus NVIDIA versus everything. I didn't get a reply for about an hour and a half. And then when I finally did, they were just like, all right, fine, you were right. So what? So, some people are coping pretty hard. The mining community, I think, is coping pretty hard because they're having a run up right now. I'm in miners. I know Ben's in miners, so it's not like I'm dunking on them, but it's just not the same. Go from like 2022 to now, even with the down year in 2022, MicroStrategy has outperformed, right? MicroStrategy today has bought up more Bitcoin than Marathon had in their entire fucking hodl, just like that, right? So I think people need to have a different perspective on what it is they're looking at. And with the AI play, so just today, I had a meeting in the morning where I was trying to walk a client through how to get their data from system A to system B, essentially, right? They had 2 developers. They had a senior HRIS manager. They had a HR director, and they also had a junior analyst, right? This is not me being proud. This is just me saying what the market is. After the conversation, after I did my presentation, after I showed them my output, they said they're going to eliminate all those positions by the end of the year. That's about $924,000 in salary.
Wait,
Gone.
this was at a mining company?
No, this is at a company I'm doing project work for. And I'm not going to say who, confidentiality and all that. But so when it comes to AI and how I think it's going to affect everything, I don't think this deflationary move is going to be as smooth as people are thinking. I think it's going to be rather disruptive. And I think we're going to have a bifurcated economy. We're going to have, MicroStrategy, Bitcoin, NVIDIA, all the stuff up here. Then we're going to have everything else. And I think the deflation hits everything else before it hits MicroStrategy, before it hits NVIDIA, before it hits Bitcoin, before it hits all of these, I guess you could call them blue chip companies now in the FANG, right? So I think we're going to go through a period of needing universal basic income. I think we're going to go through a period of needing to retool. AI and robotics is going to really be disruptive, because what's going to happen to housing, just to your point, Jeff, they build houses so cheap now, right? They're not built to last. So what's going to happen when you have a gang of 50 robots that can put a house up in 2 days?
3D
Are you
printed.
still, yeah, are you still going to charge someone $750,000 for a shack in Santa Monica when you can build it that quickly? I don't think the model holds, right? So there's going to be a lot of deflationary pressure that's going to be disruptive, while also having inflationary pressure at the same time on very, very high end assets. And that's where the bifurcated economy comes in. And we're going to have people that are still highly employable on the upper echelon of that. And then you're going to have everyone else below that's going to be struggling, which is why I'm telling people, got to get into Bitcoin, you got to invest your money, you got to get into MicroStrategy, stop fucking around with dog with hat and smoking chicken fish and all these other bullshit coins. Like, if you want to take risk, I don't know why people don't go into their Robinhood, into their Charles Schwab, whatever. Buy the Bitcoin ETF, open up some margin, buy some more Bitcoin ETF on margin. If you have income coming in, you can cover the margin calls. Not financial advice to everyone in the fucking chat. Just want to make sure you know that. I'm just telling you what I've done as someone that has capital coming in to grow my MicroStrategy position exponentially. You can't do that with altcoins, right? So I think the model that everyone is following, that last cycle model, everyone is still expecting the miners to do well. Everyone is still expecting there to be an alt season, because there's going to be a rotation from Bitcoin into everything else. Larry Fink didn't get in here for people to rotate out of his fund.
Right.
Those aren't the people we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, the exposure is way different. You have so many more vehicles and a way better understanding of what those vehicles are, right, with IBIT and MicroStrategy. Like, the miner perspective is interesting. Brian, jump in there. I know you feel strongly.
Okay, friends.
All right,
Let's
here we
be
go.
honest here.
Get him.
Let's be honest here. This is not financial advice. Nothing I ever say is financial advice. But to the extent that people care what I have to say, let me tell you something. You come to me for milk, bread, and eggs. What matters? The basic fundamentals of what matters. I don't wish any ill will on people's portfolios. But if someone cares about my thoughts about the miners, all of them are horrendous businesses. They're incredibly challenging to understand. I lived this with Tesla. Luckily, I got lucky and it was like an ignorance is bliss type thing. But like with Tesla, I don't know, like lithium phosphate chemistry in the batteries. And then we make cars in China and then we put the cars on boats and then we send them to all over the place in the world. We make mega packs and then we refine the lithium in Corpus Christi, Texas. And then we got a mega pack facility in, like the Vegas area, and we put solar panels on people's houses and power walls on people's houses. It's crazy. It's crazy. The whole thing. I had no idea what I was doing there, if I'm being honest. Whereas something like MicroStrategy is one has to still put the work in, but it's actually understandable. For a traditional equity analyst or Bitcoiner, you can actually grasp this. Now let's get back to the miners. These guys have a dilution that would make the movie Armageddon with Bruce Willis, Ben Affleck. These miners have a dilution that would make the movie Armageddon, into the camera, look like a comedy movie. It would make the miners' dilution would make it seem like an asteroid that's going to kill everyone on planet Earth look like a comedy movie. I'm talking 5,000%. I'm talking 10,000% and beyond over the past 5 years. What do I mean by that? The shares outstanding percentage change. I can show people all this stuff on Y charts, but you just look at the shares, the number of shares that exist past 5-10 years, Armageddon. Why is it Armageddon? Because the capex of this business is incredibly awful. Hash rate constantly goes higher. meaning all of the miners have to constantly improve their systems. They got, and by the way, they got like computers in the water. They got computers in the water. I have no idea what that is. I thought computers in water we kept separate. But it's just like from a general like full-time equity analyst position, I thought we kept the water and the computer separate. This whole thing is crazy. And unless you're like a hardcore like hardware engineer and probably also a software engineer understanding as well, no one's ever going to get this. Yeah. Nobody's ever going to, and they have to constantly upgrade these machines, and they have to constantly like battle like electricity bills. Hash rate keeps going higher. It keeps getting harder. Like, it's a terrible business all the way around. All of the miners, the public ones, the private ones, who cares? They're all bad. I'm sorry.
They're tougher investments.
No bread and eggs. I'm sorry.
So, well, there's some nuance there. First of all, with the water thing, my PC is water cooled right here. I've got water running through it all the time with cooling liquid and so on and so forth. So water and computers, they don't necessarily conflict.
But is it in the water? Like it's like a swimming pool full of computers.
No, I know.
That is very complicated.
That's cooling liquid. But to your point, most of the miners, that's why I don't invest in most of them. Like Ben and I have talked about this ad nauseum, right? There's a few of them that we invest in. They're AI plays. I can give a shit about hash rate. I can give a shit about anything else. I care about megawatts and what they can do for an AI play. So with your point, however, you're very, very right. The dilution is insane for some of these miners. And we can drop specific miners right now that are acting like they're honeypots, where executives are just getting compensation like every fucking quarter, and the company's not really doing anything. So yes, the point is well taken. But I bring it up to say this: there are certain miners that are just miners in name, and what they're really doing right now is they're biding their time until they can leave the mining business for everything you just said. So there's one in particular, again, not going to name drop, but Ben probably knows what I'm talking about. He is a miner. They are a miner in name alone, right? So I understand why people like miners, but this goes back to my point about last cycle. Last cycle, the miners had a run-up that was obscene, right? They had a run-up that made people a lot of money. A lot of people are assuming the same thing's going to happen. That's why miners are so in vogue. But my miner position is this compared to my MicroStrategy position. So I know what the better investment vehicle is. It's just that a lot of people don't, because they're just gambling. They hear Bitcoin proxy and they hear 2x, 3x. You got Mike Alfred, you got all these different guys talking about it. They get sucked into it. So I don't fault them. Now they lose all their money. I don't want them bitching at the end of the cycle, because I told all of them, get your 2x, get your 3x, and get the fuck out. That's what you got to do. Roll it into something else. But a lot of them think they're going to go 15, 20, 30x. So it is what it is.
They're different. They're completely different risk return trade-offs. And the long-term value proposition is far different than MicroStrategy, right? It's a different perspective, different use of permanent capital. Meanwhile, Saylor is over here famously getting a $1 salary, right? Hasn't sold any shares since I guess earlier this year when he had the 4,000 share expiration and he had to exercise. But other than that, like his core position, he hasn't sold a single share from his core position, and he gets paid a $1 salary ever. Right. And then you start to think about the game theory concept here as well with nation state adoption. And if nation states are if they're energy rich, cash poor, they're incentivized to stand up as many mining operations as possible in remote areas and try to mine as much Bitcoin as possible, and use that as another way to add Bitcoin to their nation state balance sheet. And all of a sudden, the cost of mining Bitcoin just went higher, and you had no control over it. And computers are going to continuously get better, and you're going to have to replace the computers, and you got all this infrastructure, it decays, et cetera, et cetera. But Yeah, it's a crazy business model. Ryan, I agree with you. Adrian, I agree.
No,
with you.
it is. From a risk standpoint, and this sounds weird for me to say, I would rather be an MSTU than some of these miners long term. I shit you not. So some of them have, again, I don't want to name drop. Some of them are just such bad companies fundamentally with the way they run things, that something like MSTU, even with the volatility decay, even with everything like that, if you put a gun to my head and you said put 20 grand in one of them, I would still pick MSTU over some of these other miners. So I understand fully what you guys are saying. I just want to poo-poo all of it.
Yeah.
A lot of these are AI plays. They're not mining plays, right? So that's what attracted me to the space.
What the miners need to do is figure out a way to monetize the heat. If you start having like spas and baths everywhere, like old ancient Rome or something, and they're all heated by Bitcoin mining operations, and people pay fees to go in, all of a sudden, boom, all right, maybe the equation looks a little bit different. But we're far cry from that. I mean, they do secure the network, and I think it is a really important component of Bitcoin. Without the miners, I mean, we're not here, right? Like we need the miners, we need nodes, and I can see a world where eventually everybody's going to have a Bitcoin mining rig. It's going to be right next to their air conditioner on their roof of their house, and it's going to be everywhere. It could be everywhere. I mean, who knows?
Look, but let's
if nation states, go ahead.
Let's not act like the public miners are like doing the Lord's work for Bitcoin. Like let's be honest here for a second. They have a profit motive, just like every other corporate company. And Bitcoin mining stock guy always says that. He's like, well, if there were no miners, there would be no Bitcoin. It's like, yeah, if DoorDash didn't exist, I would never eat food. But we can have private company miners. We can have individual people running massive farms in North Dakota in their backyard running mine. Like we don't have to put public companies like on a pedestal because they mine Bitcoin. It's like,
yeah. So with that point, and one of the reasons why probably after this cycle, besides maybe, I don't know, one or two miners, I won't touch any of them ever, is because as developing nations get their energy grids and infrastructure set up, mining is going to move there, and they're going to have competition from those developing nations. So like the Clean Sparks, the Riots, the Marathons, unless they expand into those areas pretty heavily, I think they're going to be up against nation states. And I do think nation states have an impetus to get involved with mining because there's other benefits to it with regards to grid stabilization, with regards to energy storage, with regards to megawatt production, so on and so forth. We can go on into that. But this is about MicroStrategy, though. So I just want to make sure that we don't let this get hijacked.
Let's get back.
Let's get back to MicroStrategy.
No.
Now, MicroStrategy.
Here's the reality, guys. Here's the reality. All right.
Yeah, exactly. So with MicroStrategy, though,
in El Salvador, they're mining Bitcoin in volcanoes, and that is super cool. I don't care what your feelings are about the business.
Sick.
It's awesome. Even Ryan can appreciate that. They're mining Bitcoin in volcanoes, and that's all people need to know about Bitcoin mining for right now, is that specific piece of it is pretty awesome.
I want to buy some volcano sats.
Yes, you might have some.
You know,
you might have some.
Maybe I do.
Did you guys see the meme today of Nayib Bukele? It was a meme. It's Nayib opening his investment account. It's like, maybe I might buy Guatemala today.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, I got to go look on a map. Guatemala's like 6 times the size of El Salvador, maybe 10 times the size of El Salvador, but criminals everywhere. That could be on the table.
Are they about to be like completely debt free, like from the IMF, pretty soon?
Well, yeah, their debt got refinanced. I'm pretty sure JP Morgan refinanced their debt for them at like pennies on the dollar.
Yeah. See that's I think, all jokes aside, I think that's cool as shit that El Salvador did that. I think that they are getting out from under the thumb of the IMF. I think is really huge for them. And Bukele's doing a lot of stuff internally. I'm still not moving there. I don't give a shit what anyone says. I'm not doing that. But in terms of the message that it sends for nation state adoption, if the U.S. would just do it, or if one of the bigger nations would do it, man, I'm telling you, like the floodgates, they just burst open. And the game theory that you keep talking about, yeah, I think it kicks into overdrive. I think it really does. So
Angry Buddha was right though. Like when the IMF came out and started making all this noise and started telling El Salvador to knock it off and stop doing the Bitcoin thing, like
yep.
it's got to feel so awesome to just eventually know that they're going to have to come back and start supporting everything you're doing with Bitcoin now after they came and told you maybe don't do this, just use the US dollar. Like that's going to feel pretty cool. And now he's where's Bukele today? In Costa Rica, right? And he's in Costa Rica, and you can imagine what they're talking about, right? He's in Costa Rica talking about how great Bitcoin's been doing. He's on Twitter, saying, I told you so. Like he's having a day. And if you're one of those countries, that was my point about like the global wealth redistribution amongst nations.
Yeah.
Like he's a great marketer for those smaller countries that want to expand where they stand in the world. They've got a chance here to finally start accumulating early before the giants do to make sure that they've got a place on the stage. So I don't know what they're talking about. I got to guess. But I think that some of those smaller countries you're going to see adopting sooner rather than later.
It would make sense for them. I mean, why wouldn't they? Well, what reason do they have to keep the current system going that they're getting fucked by?
When was the last time you saw another country buy another country's land? Was it like Louisiana Purchase? Like when
Alaska? Probably Alaska.
That stuff, yeah.
So I mean,
well, the Louisiana Purchase was the most ridiculous one in history. I think in adjusted terms, they got acres for like cents. So it breaks down to like $30 million for the entire fucking thing. So yeah.
But I mean, we might see that sats like Mexico or Guatemala is like, yeah, you know what? You want this beachfront property here, and all of a sudden you got El Salvador stretching like all of the beachfront property up until Mexico. And
I mean, it's possible.
It's possible. It could happen.
I think what's more likely with hyper Bitcoinization, which is a term I hate, but I use it anyway. I think that down the line, it's in the benefit of the nations that do adopt a Bitcoin standard to have like an exchange rate, kind of like they have for gold. So I can see where sats start off like a $1 per sat, right? So just imagine that future. One Bitcoin is $100 million. Then, because fiat is still inflationary and Bitcoin is operating as a base layer, you can then have sats be $5, then 10, then 50, then 100. The fiat game could go on forever with Bitcoin underpinning everything, but via an exchange rate. We don't necessarily need supply and demand to determine everything, because just like when FDR pulled the 6102, and that's not what's going to happen here. They bought the gold for one exchange rate, then started selling it again for another that was twice the price. I can see a future where countries help keep inflation under wraps and keep it from getting out of hand by having the base layer of Bitcoin constantly being expanded to take on more and more of that inflation, and Bitcoin becomes the liquidity sink for everything, derivatives, M2, everything.
Yeah, whoa.
Totally unrelated. Is anyone else waiting for Tim's phone to get stolen out of his hand one of these live streams? And we just witness a crime live in the streets of New York City.
Running away.
It's totally off topic, but I'm kind of waiting for that to happen as Tim's wandering down the street.
West Side Highway. Crushing it. Soleil, let's bring you in, man. Are you an option seller right now? Or are you option buyer? What's going on in the option world? I know.
Are you asking me what I think from an option seller's perspective? Is that what you're trying to ask me?
Absolutely. Yeah.
How the hell would I know? I just buy leaps now. I'm not even in the game. Like, no, I mean, I have like 10% of my 3,000 delta covered. Like the rest is just unlimited upside. And like a year ago, I was just a straight option seller. I pick up a few pennies here, pick up a few pennies there, but I was doing all right. You know what I'm saying? I didn't need MSTR. Like it worked better. Like the premiums were better. But then I saw a little show. You might have heard of it. It's called Quant Bros 1. And a couple of weeks later, I paid $30,000 to roll a covered call because the price went from 1,400 to 1,700 in a week. And I'm like, oh, maybe I do need to take a look at this. And, Quant Bros 1 had like spreadsheets and like voodoo magic in there. And it wasn't even like Quant Bros, it was like voodoo bros. And my models were just destroyed. Is that what you want to hear? Like uncle. I'll cry to uncle, and now I just buy freaking long calls and watch it print.
Welcome to the crew.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just a broken shell of a man, and you're gonna have to live with that. When you look in the mirror,
would you
hundreds of
you
episodes
destroyed
that
an
mean
option
nothing
seller.
anymore?
What's that, Ben?
I said hundreds of episodes of covered call selling just out the window.
Yeah.
Now all you
I
have to
gotta-
do is go live
Exactly.
every day and show people your long calls that you're piling up now and let them know that, everything they've learned in the past was wrong.
Yeah,
I love
you
it.
know all that stuff I said in Orange Pill Investor 1 through 278. Fuck all of that shit. Just go back and watch Quant Bros 1 through 8.75 or whatever the hell that's up to now.
Remember when 1% a week was awesome? Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, exactly. Can we just start over?
Look, we're not Neethu. I'm in the private chat saying give Neethu 10 minutes. Do stand-up comedy. We're not looking for scalps here. I'll go to Doc Kruger, Fred Kruger space. I'll be looking for scalps. I'm not looking for scalps here. And enjoy the moment. What do you have to say?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I did add like one or two, today, but I've really just been waiting for at least strategic moments. I used to sell completely mechanically, but then of course I took the premium and I just aped into more long calls. So, I'm selling short within a 45-day window, and then I'm buying December long calls or whatever, something that, theta is small and I can just hold and, just trying to maximize it. But I'm kind of terrified every time I do it, but we'll see.
Yeah, but now, like, let's say MicroStrategy goes to $1 trillion, right? Like, you start looking at $1 trillion market cap. You might turn into an option seller again, hardcore, and all of a sudden, Quant Bros out the window. We're not important anymore. All eyes are going to be on you because it's like, how do I earn a yield on this thing? And I posted this the other day. It's like, how many of you 1x mNAV bears are running covered call strategies on your cold storage Bitcoin? The answer is 0.
Yeah.
0. If you want to earn a yield on your Bitcoin, yeah, you might have a lending opportunity at some point in the future, but lending is not earning a yield. You can earn a yield running a covered call strategy, holding MicroStrategy. So, like, there's utility. There's literal utility of holding MicroStrategy shares. As long as you have more than 100, you could sell a covered call.
Yeah, and this
David
might be
Neethu is going to be
blasphemous.
selling covered calls and bringing in like $200,000 a week. It's not even going to matter at that point. It's just going to be play
just
for
fun.
him. He's going to have so much MicroStrategy that he's just going to be selling $200,000 a week just to like go gamble with. He's going to go from selling covered calls to online gambling, and you're just going to see him every week button it on black.
Oh yeah, I'm drooling over it. I mean, even at today's prices, like, if I wanted to sell an at the money covered call, let's just say I had no faith in MicroStrategy. I'm like, you know what? This is the top, and I'm just going to sell no upside covered call. It was like $1,500 to $2,000 for just, for every 100 shares. So if you own 100 shares, that was basically my W-2. That's my W-2 income. So 1,000 shares is 10 times my annual salary. 2,000 shares, it gets insane. And I know we haven't even talked catalysts yet, but if this is $1,000 a share, 1,000 shares is $1 million, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So earning 1% a week on $1 million I can buy groceries with that. Like, that's
yeah.
I think we're going to have a new segment on the stream where like Neithu and Jeff need to, every time we do a stream, they have to practice resigning from their day job. And I want to hear the speech, and I want you to have it down really well. And you're going to have to try not to laugh. It has to be serious. You're going to have to pretend you were appreciative of the opportunities that they brought you.
I'm very
as you're
appreciative.
telling them how out you are. Like, I want that segment on here.
Dude, I tell you what, you guys are making so many freaking podcasts. I mean, I have so many notes of like, okay, I'm going to cover this in a video, and then I just can't talk long enough to cover all the shit that you guys are doing. But Ryan said something, and tell me if you remember it, Ryan, but you said something along the lines of you wanted your portfolio to get so big that the crash doesn't matter. Like,
Yes.
if there's a bear market and the price goes
cares?
50%, who gives a shit? And that's kind of like, that's literally my goal for this, because if MicroStrategy gets to 1,000 a share, and then during the bear cycle, if one happens, it goes to 500, I won't give half a damn. You know what I mean? Earning, you know, however much I can make selling covered calls against that is just going to be like padding my stats and loading dry powder for the next bear cycle. So yeah, I couldn't give a shit less if it crashes 50%.
I remember that as well. And here's the reason I said that. These 1x mNAV bears. Can I name names? Fred Krueger, Wayne Vaughn. I'm friends with the Wicked Smart Bitcoin. I'm friends with these people, but they're wrong. And I will now talk about why they're wrong. They are not understanding like an asymmetry, right? Shorting stocks is obviously a fucking awful business because you can only make 100%. That's the capped, limited. A stock, a long asset, gold, real estate can go up an unlimited number of times to the upside. These 1x mNAV bears keep coming back to this brilliant point of theirs that they think is so brilliant. One of the many, because one of their other many points is like, oh, what if another company just appears out of thin air and just buys more Bitcoin than MicroStrategy? That's one of their horrendous ideas. Here's the main point, horrendous idea that I was talking about. They're like, what if there's a bear market and MicroStrategy goes down? Wait, don't laugh. What if MicroStrategy goes down a little bit more than Bitcoin?
Whoa.
You're gonna wow. You're gonna get wrecked in that scenario. It's like, look, you people never understood this from the beginning, and you never will for the rest of your lives, because if something can go up by a factor of 10, 20, 30, you don't care. A factor of 100, you don't care if it gets cut in half, 60, 70%. If you believe in the long-term story. Apple Computer, maybe you've heard of them. In the dot-com bubble, they had a 40% down day, one day. In like 2000 or 2001. Don't quote me on the year, but this was after the major pivot point in human history, when Steve Jobs retook the throne of the company that he started in Wozniak's garage. That's Steve Wozniak. And there were countless bears on the street about Apple, their cash flow, this, blah, 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 all this crap. They all probably thought they sounded so smart in the moment. Fast forward to today, Apple's one of the biggest. It was the biggest company on planet Earth for 15 years, and they just kept buying back the stock, and it just kept going higher. And all those idiots had to eat their words. And that's what I think we have here with MicroStrategy, not financial advice.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. Adrian, it sounds like you're going to drop off.
Yep.
Cool.
Got it.
Thanks for joining. We'll catch you.
Take care, sir. We'll talk.
We're going to have another green day tomorrow, and I just want to see how much more I'm going to drink tomorrow when it happens.
We're going higher.
I'm going to text you now, Adrian, about the hackability thing. I want to have that talk.
Cool. All right. Later, guys.
Later, Adrian. Yeah. I've got a couple items just want to walk through, and a couple of questions were popping up. One thing about options, I think somebody asked about, I think it was Christoph asked about premium on calls. In my analysis of looking at the price potential of MicroStrategy, it seems like most of the call options, with the exception of what's going to be released tomorrow, because I think 700 strikes may be available tomorrow at some dates, which is starting to get up there. But and you can go look at Josh Mandel's tweets in the past. He thinks that there's a scenario where every single one of these call options that has been sold is going to be in the money. There's going to be a situation potentially where the market makers aren't able to collect enough premium to hedge the risk to the upside, which I think is a potential, and there is a non-zero probability that happens. And the reason I believe that is because the scale of some of the catalysts that we have on the horizon. So QQQ, for example, I posted this today on my profile. I looked at the order book on Robinhood. It doesn't represent 100% of the order book. There's definitely dark pool trading, a bunch of stuff that happens off book. But the order book, if you had a $30 million of buy-side volume, that would have moved the market cap of MicroStrategy by $5 billion. So that's about 185 times multiple of the flows of dollars coming in the door. So if you think about QQQ and the potential QQQ inclusion that may happen in December, the rank days on November 29th, we've got 13 trading days until November 29th. But before we have an understanding of how much potential new inflows may go into MicroStrategy from QQQ. If we take that same multiplier, 185x, multiplied by $1 billion, if MicroStrategy gets in at like 50 ranked number 50 company, there would be about $1 billion of buy-side volume coming in the door. If you take that same multiple, 185x, you're looking at adding $185 billion market cap, potentially very quickly. And you add that to the 70 billion that they've got right now, and now you're looking at $250 billion market cap, almost 3xing potentially very quickly. And so you may be looking at $1,000 to $1,500 MicroStrategy shares potentially before the end of the year. Again, this is not financial advice. This is just what some math would indicate. There could be more pressure on shares. There could be less pressure on shares. Some of this can happen in dark pools. Some of this, people are front running this. It could happen now. But in my game theory of this whole analysis is that there's no incentive to sell. Like QQQ isn't the only catalyst. Like you have potential you've got FASB inclusion. You've got this January 17th, 2025 option expiration. You got S&P 500. You've got future growth in the price of Bitcoin, entire 2025 Bitcoin bull market. Like US buying a million Bitcoin and adding it to their balance sheet. Like it's insane, right? The catalyst list is like totally crazy. So there's no incentive to sell. Like generally when equities are front run being put into an index, there's incentive to sell into the passive flows. For example, go look at Lululemon. When it was added to the S&P 500, it was front run. As soon as they were added to the S&P 500, guess what happened? The stock dropped because nobody's buying sweatpants. Sweatpants, I'm buying Bitcoin over sweatpants all day, every day. So when you look at some of the charts and analysis that people post, where they show inclusion before and after and how a stock performs before and after, they're using averages. They're using averages and means of hundreds of stocks, 500 plus stocks. And it's a really skewed metric because not all of those equities are treated equally. And you've got a handful, 5, 10, 15, that have technological moats and they're thrust into the top of the leaderboard, like Tesla. Tesla is a much better example of index inclusion. So you can see how the market cap changed over time because they had this technological advantage and this technological moat. So I think we could go much higher. I think the premium on some of the long dated calls is like, while it seems high, it seemed high when I was buying them back in January of 2023. So it seemed high the whole time. And now I'm sitting on 100x gains on some of those things.
Here's what's going to happen to a lot of people right now. If you look at the options chain that's out there. So I was just looking because someone was asking. So like the June 2026s, Yeah, June 18, 2026, the
Ooh.
690 strike.
I like
You
those.
can sell for $111.30.
690s are out right now.
Yeah, so if you had 1,000 shares of
69.0.
MicroStrategy, 690. So if you had 1,000 shares of MicroStrategy, right, post split, right now you could go and collect 111 grand and still have almost 2x upside from where your holdings are today. Like, there's going to be some people that lose their shares because of that, because that is a really good salary for a lot of people. So that's going to be hard to resist when you've got something like MicroStrategy that offers you those types of premiums. And now imagine, like, since we've had this call, I don't want to say that, you know, we're causing it, but the price has been going up. It was coming down, it's going back up now. We're almost back to 89,000. You know, that's just the reality, as Ryan would say.
The True North
But
premium.
the True North premium. So when these
That's 1x
options
at
open
least.
tomorrow, that 1,000 shares might be able to net you an entire year's salary of $130,000 or $140,000. Like, owning the shares is really valuable, and people
Super.
don't get how
Super.
valuable the volatility is. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm not doing that because I'm not losing my shares at 690. I still think that's low. But let this thing run for a while, and imagine if you could use your 1,000 shares and you could collect $250,000 by selling covered calls 2 times out of the money, 2 times the current value, a year and a half away, right? Like, that's really meaningful money to people.
No,
Like,
but
we start dealing with ridiculous numbers here that start to sound absurd, and you become really numb to it. But normal people that got into this, you know, earlier, and now they've gone through the split and they've got all these shares, like, you have an ability to tap the value of it pretty quickly in a big, meaningful way for most people. It's almost getting to where 1,000 shares, you sell some covered calls and you could buy a house in a lot of areas in the US, right? Not San Diego, not New York, but like the rest of the US. Like, with $250,000 or $300,000, you can start buying houses with that just because you sold covered calls on 1,000 shares of MicroStrategy. Like, that's wild that that's coming to fruition. And if we're just getting started, that gets more and more valuable as time goes on. So you're going to want to hold on to some of these shares for a while, because volatility is the product, and it's one people want, and there's a premium to it that people don't recognize.
if I may, we talked about the financial engineer stuff and how, like, MicroStrategy is the best equity, corporate bond, and volatility option type product. If cycle theory continues, which we don't know, we can only speculate on that, that would put the top in the ballpark of October, November, December 2025. In that rough ballpark. If that happens, at that point, I will be buying puts on the Ethereum ETF. Maybe like 1 year plus, like leap puts. I'm in leap calls in MicroStrategy. I'll be in leap puts in Ethereum and maybe the miners too. I think those things are dogs. They're going to zero. So at that point, I look, I respect the people who sell covered calls. God bless you. We need those people in the market. God bless you. I get it. I never see the trade of selling covered calls. I'd rather take like the asymmetric bet on like well-timed like Ethereum puts or like puts on the miners instead of selling covered calls on MicroStrategy.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what do you? So I was looking for something exactly like that as well. I want Ethereum options approved, and I want to just load up on puts in 2025, and like, you know, I'll be selling covered calls and using the premium to buy puts in Ethereum. But then again, when you talked about the call skew, the long calls are, you know, the price is going up and the puts are going down, right? So then, well, wait a minute. If the fucking puts are so cheap in MicroStrategy, I'm like, should I be buying those? Or like, it's kind of tricking me a little bit. Like, what do you think about that? Like, I don't want to short it, but I'm like, well, wait a minute. If the call skew is telling me they're underpriced, am I supposed to? Like, I don't know. Explain this to me. Like, I'm
Need to.
5 because I am 5.
This is a long squeeze. This is a key. This is not only a key characteristic of a long squeeze. This is a necessary characteristic of a long squeeze. In Tesla and Nvidia, I've run the numbers. I've looked at them. The calls are always much more expensive than the puts, which that information in and of itself doesn't mean that like the puts are a good buy because they're cheap.
Okay.
There's a reason that the market is valuing it as such. That's my interpretation. I could be wrong. I'm an idiot. That's my interpretation.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate on the covered calls to the positive side on why you would sell them. Is if you're sitting on $100 million, which I mean it's possible, right? Like it could be likely for some of the people on the screen. You're sitting on $100 million and you can make 1% of like selling a weekly call option that expires on Friday. You just made $1 million cash flow.
But imagine making a 10 or 20x on puts on Ethereum or the miners.
Yeah, you could do that. You could do that too. Like you could do that as well. Like if you're working or doing something, like you could take that cash flow and then buy puts on the miners, right? Like it's $100 million, and if it got called away, like you're fine because you just got paid like the cost of the shares that just got called away. You just made $100 million.
But what's the optimal path? There's a million different paths.
Fair.
What's the optimal path?
So here's my best. Let me see. I was actually trying to formulate this, so I may be doing this prematurely. But if I'm going to give my best, option selling pitch. So, Jeff and Ryan, I don't think either of you have ever opened to sell, right? I know Ryan has said so.
No.
What about Tim and Ben? I know Ben has done some degen work.
I do it every week, man.
You do it every week.
I stole your formula and I put it in a program and I do it every Monday.
So if you are long, you like the stock, the optimal play is going to be leveraged long call.
Leverage long.
We agree on that? Leverage
long, yeah.
So do you ever just sell them or not or do you just roll forever?
The infinite roll. Oh shit!
Yeah, do you
infinite that's
roll?
Probably what Grain's doing. Grain is going to infinite roll until he's he's got $10 billion.
Because if you admit that there's ever a time that you don't want leveraged long, exposure, you have to sell it. You sell to close.
Yeah, right.
Your thesis is no different than sell to open.
Yeah.
You are basically capitulating and saying, I am no longer feel comfortable being leveraged long, and I want to at least just be, normal long, shares long.
Shares long.
But what's the best way to express that view, considering asymmetric outcomes? What is the optimal path?
Well, so I guess that gets back to this point. So if when I started selling options, like I just taught myself. I just went to YouTube and watched probably 1,000 hours of like tasty trade videos, and they're very, they're about, generating premium, which lowers your cost basis. And every time you lower your cost basis, you're going to increase your chance of success. The trade-off is the, unlimited upside you're giving up. So let's just assume that you're not, you don't have conviction in MicroStrategy like I do now, and I'm sure everybody on this call does. So you probably suck at picking stocks, right? And you're an emotional trader. So you FOMO into something, you buy at the top, it crashes, and then you panic sell. I think those are most traders that lose money's major problems. And option selling kind of solves both of those, because if you sell a cash secured put 20% below the current price, and then you end up, the price drops to that amount, you're getting a discount on the price. So you're getting, the same kind of entry price that you would on a limit order, plus you lowered your cost basis by the premium that you collected. Right? Let's just say it's 1%. If trader A buys stock, and trader B buys the exact same stock, but they got it 1% cheaper than you every single time. And every time they sold it, instead of setting a limit order, they sold it at a strike that the same strike price, and they collected 1%. So every time they sell the position, they're getting 1% more than you. Like, which trader is more likely to succeed over the long run? If you could just use your checkout code and get a 1% discount every time, or you know what I mean? So I think for someone who just as long as you can just not pick a stock that goes to zero, I think running the wheel strategy and selling puts to get into a stock, you pick a strike that's over your cost basis, and you sell covered calls until the shares get called away, and you just rinse and repeat. I think rookie traders that couldn't pick a good stock to save their freaking soul, I think it kind of like holds their hands. And then with the emotional selling part, like it kind of just forces you to buy low, sell high, because as long as you sell a strike over your cost basis, you're kind of locked into taking profits at that price. So, it's like training wheels, I think, really, for trading. And, eventually you can learn the ropes, and then you finally maybe, you run into Quant Bros, and then you develop some conviction in something, and you can change your strategy at that point.
I think what you just said is going to get cut up, and people are that's going to get blasted out, and people are going to have to watch that 15 times. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch it. And
just hope they don't clip the part where he says, the orange pill investor did 200 videos and now they're all worthless.
Yeah.
Like, this is the learning,
yeah,
right? This is the learning that he's bringing. Like, it evolves over time, and you have to understand that. Like, there's a point where I would definitely consider selling covered calls on MicroStrategy, right? You're going to hit a point eventually where enough money is enough money, right? Don't let greed overtake you completely.
Yeah.
When you've got an amount of money where you're going to be able to do anything you ever feel like doing, if I get to that point, and like those calls I was looking at, if my stack got to, let's say I've got $5 million of MicroStrategy, right, at the time, and I can sell covered calls double the value they are today, right? So I would have to sell my shares for $10 million, plus I could collect 30% of that $5 million value in premium. I might start considering that.
Yeah.
Right. Because now, okay, I have to sell at $10 million plus the 30% I collected in premiums. Like, when you've gotten to the point where enough is enough, and you're not trying to do the, I'm going to ride this to infinity. Like, it's actually a pretty good way to look at it, because when you do that, you collect money you can use now, right? I can use that premium now. I've got lots of, I don't know, what's 30% of $5 million, right? Let's find out. Times 0.3, that's $1.5 million. So you've got $1.5 million that you could use today. And if you are forced to sell your shares, your downside is you make another $5 million by the time you have to sell it.
Right.
For a lot of people, that brings the enjoyment of life sooner than it would otherwise if you're just waiting. Like, I'm not an advocate of people not enjoying their life and just clinging to stocks forever because they have this fear of selling. Like, at some point, you do have to do that analysis that says, if this really benefits my family, and I can travel now, and I can enjoy the good years of my life while I'm young enough to enjoy it, and I'm not just worried about healthcare costs and getting a good recliner, like, that's worth a lot. So I'm not the person that's going to push everyone to say, die with all your shares. I'm not that guy. Right? Like, I'm going to enjoy life. Not yet, because I still believe I'm very early. And so I think this has a long way to run, but I'm definitely going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Right? There's that cost benefit you have to do for yourself to say, at what point does time hold more value than money? And if I've got the money I need to enjoy it now, am I still willing to give up the time of using that, of traveling with my family and taking trips? Maybe you buy a ski house on a mountain because your family loves to ski. Like, whatever it is, there is that point in time you have to make that decision, because time is more finite than MicroStrategy stock's going to be, right? So you have to enjoy it at some point. So While I'm still holding for quite a while because I don't think we're there, I would just say don't totally push off enjoying your life for the long term, because you might have $100 million, because if you get sick during that time, it's not going to matter anyways, right? That's my point.
It's portfolio optimization meets life optimization, and there's that connection. And you know, it's like Ryan, we could talk about optimizing and selling puts on ETH. Like I'm in, dude. If you want to do it, I'm in. But
I'll buy it.
But I'm also gonna sell a covered call, but still be long. Like I'm gonna sell a covered call and be long and like use cash flow.
I don't even care if it's the right thing to do. Like I hate Ethereum with a perfect hatred. Like no bullshit. Okay, so look, this is all my fault. All right. Before I was a Bitcoin maxi, I was a shitcoin trader, right? I mean, a bunch of crap that people maybe even never heard of. Like I was just at the charts and I'm looking. And at one point, you know, I guess I kind of felt like Ethereum and Bitcoin were supposed to trade in some kind of range, right? I had it in my head. And as Bitcoin got expensive compared to Ethereum, I'm like, holy crap, this Ethereum is really cheap. And kind of to your point, right, Ryan, where you were like, look, just because the puts are cheap doesn't mean you're supposed to buy them. Well, I wish you would have told me that 5 years ago, because at that time, and I'm willing to say this because I don't have it anymore, so I'm not telling you what my stack is necessarily, but at the time I probably had about 8 Bitcoin worth of crypto. And I traded all of my Bitcoin down to like 0.1 Bitcoin, and I had like 100 Ethereum or some stupid ass number. And then it just kept going down and down and down. So I hold like 80% less Bitcoin than I should by just screwing around with Ethereum. So when Saifedean said that Ethereum is the mother asshole from which all shitcoins spring, that is like, I want that on my gravestone. And I cannot wait to celebrate and just tap dance on Ethereum's grave.
And look, if we're telling shitcoin stories, if I may, I bought Ethereum before I bought Bitcoin in 2018 because I read George Glider's book, Life After Google, before I read The Bitcoin Standard by Safety Namoose. And I was so moved by George Glider's book. A friend of mine, his dad worked at JP Morgan Chase, senior executive. He's like, read this book. So I read the book, bought Ethereum, then sold it in 2020 for way more than I bought it, bought Bitcoin with that money. So it all worked out. But yeah, a lot of us have like a shitcoin past. But here's the thing I really want to say in regards to Ben's comments of, I'm not here to tell people this. Look, folks, for me, I can't speak for the group, but for me, I'm pulling the Charles Barkley card when he said, Charles Barkley, NBA Hall of Famer, great guy. He's on TNT, talks about basketball all the time. I think he's on Twitter too. He said, I'm not a role model. I'm never giving other people financial advice. I like, people can do what they want. I'm here to talk to like friends and share ideas. So nothing I say should ever be construed as financial advice. When I say like I'm never selling my shares and I'm never going to sell covered calls against them, that's a personal thing. Now, with that being said, let me leave a question with the group. Please show me the point in time in which it made sense to sell covered calls on Apple Computer or NVIDIA over the past, I don't know, let's say 20 years. Please show me that specific point in time.
That's a good point.
I'll wait.
When the IV rank was spectacularly high, over 50 is a reasonable number, but 60, 75, 80, implied volatility is a mean reverting statistic. So
is it? Do you think it is? I think the VIX can go to 300. Where's the mean reversion?
And just stay there?
Stay there?
Just stay there?
Yeah.
Could it not?
I mean, shit. I guess theoretically, yeah.
Well, but
what if it goes to 300 and it stays at 100? Plateaus there for a year.
But if you measure it as a percentile, meaning it can only go from 0 to 100, if you track the last 365 days and you rank the highest VIX as 100 and the lowest VIX of the year at 0, then it has to trade in some kind of range. It just can't go to 100 and stay there forever.
No, the VIX can go to 200, 300. That's not even the main point. The main point is smart money, smart bettors, smart investors. They want asymmetry.
Yeah.
Here's the reality. The smart money investors want asymmetry. So like, yeah, we can talk about like selling covered calls and how it's like cautious or like good at like this point of that. Again, I'm not a role model. This is not financial advice. I have no interest in doing that. And by the way, Neethu, I told you this a while back. I think if you sell optionality, I think Nassim Taleb's going to show up at my house and be like, "You're an idiot." And I'm afraid of that outcome. And I have PTSD over that, not over the veteran stuff. I have PTSD over the thought of Nassim Taleb. He's very unpleasant, very aggressive. He's not fun. I would rather take the asymmetric bet in buying puts on Ethereum or buying puts on the miners and use that as a hedge and just never sell the stock. But you guys also know I deal quite heavily in the options market. So it's not like I need, so like this whole like, grain of salt, we love him to death. I love how he talks about this. Like when you have life-changing money, don't feel afraid to like sell a few percent here or there. I get that. For me, it's not applicable because I deal so heavily in the options market that like I'll get that fiat like what's the word, the liquidity event. I'll get that from the options. I don't ever have to sell the stock. Again, that's just me. Other people are different people. I get it.
Yeah, for sure. If you're trading in a cash account, you just have no margin, you don't have any debt to pay, then that's easy. It's definitely easier to make that decision. But I've got some margin risk. So for me, through 2025, I've got to take some profits in some manner. So I have to sell some shares or some calls or something in order to get back to no margin risk. Well, in that specific scenario, I can just set a limit order or close out some long calls, but what strike do I pick? And if I do pick a strike and we never get there, then I haven't made any money, right? But if MicroStrategy is $1,000 a share and I'm like, you know what, I need to sell some at like 110 or 1,100 in order to eliminate the debt that I have. Well, if you set a limit order 1,100 and it just gets to 1099, that's never going to trigger. So in that sense, you sell the 1,100s. If it goes above 1,100, then you sell off the shares at the price you wanted. Yeah. If it never gets to 1,100, then you just keep putting the premium in your pocket forever.
Yeah.
Well, look, I hear you on that. I have $2 million worth of margin risk all on the long side, and I'm going to repay that by selling call options, or I'm just going to ride this shit to zero either way. So like I feel like our problem set is the same problem.
Mm-hmm.
We're just approaching it slightly different angles. Is that fair?
Yeah.
You have different
really
risk management. Different risk management.
Yeah. You've also got to put it through people's life too, right? So say you had kids, right? Like Ryan, I don't think you have kids. I don't have kids, right? So we've got a different risk profile than most people are going to have. But say I did have a kid, and one of the best gifts you can give a kid if they're going to college is to get them out of college debt-free, right? These people being saddled with debt forever is a burden they can almost not dig out of, because by the time you finally get a paying job, you owe an entire house worth of mortgage that you have to pay off, right? That's a brutal burden to put on a kid. So if you were holding MicroStrategy shares and you had the ability to go sell some covered calls, keep 100% upside, and pay off that entire kid's college, that's a pretty remarkable thing to be able to do. right? And you're not any worse for wear, right? Your worst case is that it hits that dollar value and you lose your shares at double the price it is when you sold them.
Right.
I mean, that's not a real big downside. But if you had that ability to give that type of, and it could be any number of things, right? I'm just using college as an example because I think that's a big one that people are starting to figure out is they're going, I want my kid to go have the experience. I want them to get an education and find out. But the best thing as a parent that you could possibly do for your kid is put them in the greatest position with the new knowledge they've built to launch in their professional life unburdened by all this debt that can saddle them forever, that you can't get out of in a bankruptcy. So I look at a lot of people, I try to put myself in that mindset. Like I have a different set of factors I have to look at, which is selfish factors, right? I'm focused on me and the people in my immediate orbit, but I don't have kids that I'm planning that for right now.
Right.
But if you did, I would have a very, very different view on this type of an asset. If I've got this valuable of an asset, where I can now go and provide that type of experience for my kids, whether they would understand it right away, the benefit I gave them, or whether it took them another decade to figure out the advantage they had. Like it probably took me 10 years to figure out the advantage that I was given because my parents really valued college education and they were willing to put themselves under a burden to make sure that I could have the experience and come out not burdened by debt. I just got to go learn. I got the fun parts of it without all the pain. And so when I look at an asset like MicroStrategy, it's an enabler for a lot of parents to take that type of a step where if I could right now go and say, I can take 110 grand, pay off that debt, let my kid launch into life totally, you know, I'm going to unburdened by what has been, because I see it in the quotes over here. So I'll just say it. I'll say it out loud, right? We're past that time, but unburdened by what has been with debt loads, like that's a pretty valuable and good use of your MicroStrategy shares, in my opinion, while keeping 100% upside. Risk reward, if I was a parent, that would look different to me than it does today. Like today, I'm going to ride this thing for 100x, 1,000x, like whatever, right? Because the only person I'm impacting right now is me. If I had those types of responsibilities, I would look at that very, very differently. And I would want to learn from people like Soleil that there is a value behind these shares that you could tap if you needed to. And I think that's important for people to hear, right? We do the bull thing where we're going to, 20x or whatever Jeff's doing with his options. Like we get to talk like that. We're in a very privileged place right now because most of us are in that scenario right now where we don't have those types of considerations to contend with. So we're just looking at maximum value creation for ourselves. But it is definitely different when you have to plug other people into that formula. And Ryan, you've said it, right? You've got nieces and nephews and sisters and parents you want to buy houses for. Like it's really good to have a mission like that for this type of investing, because otherwise you don't have a purpose for it. And that purpose is what makes everything we've been doing work. Like we got dunked on for months because MicroStrategy's in the toilet. Everyone's telling us we were idiots. Like we got dunked on for a long time. So we're gloating a little bit now because we were right. But, everyone's arguing about a point in time. But it's those types of things that you're trying to achieve that I think gives this type of a journey a mission. That's what I like about it, is you've got the optionality now to really enhance other people's lives with your own success. That's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah.
All right, here's my last pitch, Ryan.
We're all pitching Ryan.
I got 20. I've got 20 December 19th. Oh, shit, I need my glasses. 400 and something strike. So
those are getting blown out.
Exactly. So, and that's my point. Let's assume that I'm going to sell 1 for 1 to exercise, or sell 2 to exercise 1. I don't know what the ratio is going to be. Doesn't really matter, right? So at some point, is that what you're thinking of doing as well, Ryan? Is you're going to have to sell some to exercise some, or how are you paying to exercise?
Well, the first thing I want to say is the thing that I'm throwing back right now is just water. I want to be very clear, but it's just water. in a glass bottle. I think it's cooler than Aquapana and those guys in the mining group. It's just like water.
That's your energy drink.
That's from America. You have American water. Aquapana is like imported Italian water.
That's the point.
Battling the miners wasn't enough. Now Ryan's going
Like,
after their water.
we
I mean,
can't
this
do
dude's
Italian
relentless
imported
tonight.
water.
Is it a plastic? I mean, is it a glass bottle so you don't get microplastics in your balls?
It's glass. No,
Okay.
I'm done with the plastic water.
There you go.
Stuff. I'm done with the plastic water jug. We're doing glass from now on. I want to be
Bitcoin
very
does fix everything.
You might need to sell some covered calls for the glass water, but
Look,
here's the reality.
here's the reality. I'm never gonna understand. I'm just never. I'm
That's
like
fair.
I'm like the Charlie Munger of selling covered calls. I will never understand it. I respect you guys for doing it. That's
You're the scientist. You're the scientist. We're the
But
artists.
here's my last pitch. So assuming, I mean, is that how you're exiting too? Like, are you going to have to sell some calls to pay for the exercising? Or do you just have exercise money?
I may sell some calls to exercise options, but I mean, I've got so many calls all over the place.
Yeah, so MicroStrategy is $1,000 a share, whatever, right? And you're ready to exercise some of these December 19th calls.
Yeah.
Of this year or next?
Oh, next year.
Next year. It's like October next year, December, whatever, whatever.
Next year, right.
And these damn things are so deep in the money, right?
Yeah.
So you have to sell them. At what price do you sell them? Do you sell them at $900 a share, MicroStrategy? $1,000? $1,100? Well, once this thing gets deep in the money, like at least like a 0.7 delta, it's now basically a synthetic stock, and you can sell covered calls against your in the money leaps.
Oh shit.
So if you're like, okay, I'm going to sell 15 of my long calls in order to exercise 5, then you sell 15 covered calls at $1,000 a strike, or 10% over the current price, 1,100, 1,200, whatever the hell it is. And then when it gets there, then you sell at the price you were going to sell anyway. You just close the long, as soon as the price breaches your short strike and goes above it, then you just end up getting, those shares called away at that price. And you just close them both at the strike you were going to get, but you just have the premium in your pocket. And then you use the money to exercise the damn calls you were going to exercise in the first place.
So if you know your options,
that's for reality.
Yeah, I'm furiously. It's like the meme of like I'm writing this down. I'm furiously writing this down. This is great. This is gold. Here, cut that one up too. Whoever is watching this, we're ready to cut this up. Cut that one up.
Well, just watch the first 278 episodes, and then you're good.
All of them, every single one of them. Even 2x speed, you'll be done.
But don't wait, because it'll be 285 in a week. Yeah. So.
Oh my god. I mean that makes a ton of sense. So if you have call options, and they're in the money or whatever, and you're going to sell them in order to exercise other options, you can sell covered calls against your in the money calls.
Yeah. You have to structure it well in order to make sure that you don't, because it's a 0.7 delta or 0.8, 0.9 delta. Yeah. I mean, the ones that you bought in frickin' January got to be 0.99 delta.
Yeah.
Like you could sell any covered call you want and there would be no upside risk. But, if you're at a 0.7 delta, you do have to be careful. And I got videos for that.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got a ton of these June 25 options. Mm-hmm. I may use those. What is the delta on these? 46. Yeah, tricky. Interesting.
Are we about to wrap here, Jeff?
I think so. Yeah, I think wrap.
Can I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
I've never exercised an option. Oh, I know the gods of the definition of options where a call option gives an investor the right.
The obligation.
Not the obligation to buy a security at a certain price at a certain point in time. I get it, blah, blah, blah. I've never once exercised an option. Jeff is
Same.
really like the guy for like exercising them. And he's really enlightened me about what January 17th of 2025 could be under like his context. So for me, because with Tesla, with MicroStrategy, I always had a ton of the stock already. I was like leveraging in with calls as a way so that I could have something to just sell and then pay off the leverage and then pay off like whatever else, buy a car, but whatever I have to do with the cash, or now like roll money into the cash book. My 10% of like net worth, roughly, it might be 8%, whatever. I like the 90-10 split. Roll that into the non-correlated dividend cash book to just pay me money. And I do nothing. I never even log into that account, like ever. It just pays me money. It pays the bills automatically. So with that being said, I think I'm kind of lost on this whole, like, you got to exercise, you got to do this. Maybe there's a way to hedge this, that. I've just never looked at, I've always looked at these things as a pure play, asymmetrical trading instrument. Whereas Jeff and other people can talk about like the value of like exercising them and doing that stuff.
Well, here's the reality.
Just imagine the
Dividends
reality of owning the right to buy 100 shares of the greatest stock in the market. And what you decide to do is get US dollars in return for them. Just imagine making that decision, Ryan.
Yeah, imagine
you're going long the US dollar instead of owning 100 shares of the stock that's accumulating the greatest asset we've seen. Imagine that reality. I can't imagine that would be you.
Imagine
I'm just messing with you. I know. I understand what you're saying.
I know. Imagine this reality. FTX blows up 1 week later. You dump almost all your money with leverage at $18 a share.
Imagine and then what? You go long the dollar later? Which one was the great trade?
It's like Benjamin. I think
if you're a dollar maxi, it's fine. I mean, there's a lot of those out there. I just didn't think it was you.
That's like the biggest offense.
You understood the thesis.
I'm offended.
That's like a dagger.
I'd rather you held the greatest stock known to man and sold a covered call 100% out of the money and got your cash that way.
I'm leaving the group. Take me out of all the group chats right now. I'm out.
All right, Nathan will talk to you about it. He'll get you straightened out.
Yeah. Like, here's the reality. Dividend stocks are hot garbage.
Okay, enough. You
Straight hot garbage. Like,
what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? I have to eat food, Neithu. What am I gonna eat?
Yeah, no shit. Stock? Do you have MSTU?
Can I eat that? I eat with DoorDash. I pay my rent with dividend stocks.
Yeah, but is your dividend stock MSTU?
Why?
MSTY.
I'm sorry, MSTY. My
biggest dividend position is MSTY. Fun fact.
Okay, so at least you have a dividend that's bullish on MicroStrategy. Like, at least you can hold your head high at least a little bit. But
he's also long selling.
You're telling me
they're selling covered calls for you.
This dude's selling covered calls on MicroStrategy.
You've outsourced your degeneracy to a shitty fucking yield max company.
You're paying him an expense,
bro.
Me, I'm an idiot. I want to press the buy button and log off.
You sell covered calls every month to pay your rent. You just
hired a hitman to kill somebody because you were too chicken shit to do the dirty work yourself. Buy some MicroStrategy. This is my favorite
call I've been on in a long time, by the way.
Yeah. You sell all that damn MSTU, buy some MicroStrategy, and earn your own freaking dividends like a man.
Just do it yourself.
And is that a headband or a do-rag, Ryan? I can't tell.
It's the Roman kid.
Okay. Right.
Look, I'm almost embarrassed that I wore this Army Air Corps shirt from Naples, Italy. The Army Air Corps softball team in Ryan's honor today, and you just let me down, man. It's either I either wore it for you or my clothes are in the laundry, and this is the only thing I had. You decide.
That's the truth. That's the true answer.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Oh, that was fun. I enjoyed
right.
that a lot.
Let's go all night.
You're just paying somebody to
yeah.
run your covered calls, man. It's the art of the trade.
That's right. He's hiring mercenaries instead of going in himself to do it.
Yeah, we can go all night. With these prices, I can get fired and I don't give a shit.
That's the truth.
Well, Jeff's on the road. He's got to wait till his expenses clear first. Then maybe he'll consider it.
Got a couple big dinners coming up in Manhattan. Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. Maybe hit PubKey though. Maybe I'll sneak over to PubKey from there. That'd be cool. Run into some people, some Manhattan.
Oh,
folks.
is that the one in New York City?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh.
It's a cool little bar. Yeah, cool little
I was
bar.
just there and I forgot about it.
Yeah,
now I'm pissed.
It's kind of like it's not. It's in I think West Village. Yeah, so it's not like close to any. It's not close to like Midtown or Fide-Eye or anything. You kind of got to go like out of your way to get there, but it's cool spot. I hope they start popping up at other cities, like a little cool dive bars. Maybe I'll start one in Seattle. I'll sell some covered calls and start a little PubKey in Seattle. That'd be kind of cool. Who knows? We'll see. Anyway, we're going higher. We're going way higher. MicroStrategy is worth less than Target, Chipotle, O'Reilly Auto Parts. We're going higher, right? We're going way higher. Prepare your mentals because it's gonna be crazy.
We're almost back to 89,000 again. 90,000 tomorrow.
This thing is so volatile. Oh my god, it's getting like really, like heartbeaty.
What's funny is you think that, and then you back out of the chart a little bit. You go, "Oh, it's just going up in a totally straight line."
It's
like,
literally
it's not been up and down volatile at all. It's just going straight up. It's delightful.
Yeah, delightful is the word. All right, thanks everybody for joining. Well, hold on, Ryan, are you sharing the screen?
Let's end on this. Look at the chart.
Look at the chart.
Look at the chart.
Look at the chart.
August of this year, where the mouse is.
Just look
August.
at it.
Look at the chart. August of this year. Teal blue line is MicroStrategy's implied vol. We've got Tesla, the VIX, other things. You can see them up here. August of this year. The stock's gone up 2.5x as the implied volatility has gone up 66%. The devil's number. Just like when the SPX in March of 2009, where did it bottom? What was the absolute low of the SPX, S&P 500, March of 2009? 666. Isn't that a fun
Josh this is a Josh Mandel thing. Josh would be all over this. He would like. Go ahead, Ryan.
I'm telling you, Soleil, just wait until he figures out what this means for selling covered calls. He's going to be pumped.
The volatility of MicroStrategy is higher than the volatility of the VIX. The VIX is in the white line. This, again, right here, this is August of this year. MicroStrategy's implied vol is higher than the volatility of the VIX. The volatility is the product. That can be my closing word.
That's crazy. That's pretty crazy. We are the volatility.
Yeah. I'm the captain now. Yeah, look at me.
Look at me.
Yeah.
I'm the volatility now.
I am the volatility. All right. Thanks everybody for joining. Please cut it up and slice and dice it. There's a bunch of gems in this one. Thanks for the time. We'll catch you.